When I turned 30, I didn't ask for expensive gifts. I didn't want a luxury vacation. I didn't even expect a surprise party. All I wanted was one weekend with the people I had spent most of my life sacrificing for. My name is Ethan Mercer. For almost 10 years, I was the quiet problem solver in my family. Whenever my mother couldn't pay her bills, I transferred money. When my younger brother wanted to start a business, I guaranteed his loan. When my sister needed tuition, I paid without asking when she'd repay me. Nobody forced me. They simply learned that saying we're family was enough. So for my 30th birthday, I decided to create one memory that belonged to all of us. I rented a beautiful lakeside cabin surrounded by pine trees. I filled the refrigerator with everyone's favorite food. Fresh steaks for my brother, seafood for my mother, homemade desserts for my sister. I even bought fishing equipment because Dad always said he missed fishing. 3 weeks before my birthday, I mailed printed invitations and created a family group chat reminding everyone about the weekend. Every single person replied, "We'll be there. Can't wait. It's going to be amazing." I smiled every time another message appeared. For the first time in years, I felt like maybe I wasn't just the family's emergency bank account. Maybe they actually wanted to spend time with me. On Friday afternoon, I arrived at the cabin early. I decorated the dining room with simple lights, placed birthday cupcakes on the table, lit scented candles. Then I waited. 5 o'clock. Nothing. 6 o'clock. Still no cars. 7 o'clock. No messages. I checked my phone every few minutes. No calls. No explanations. By 8:30, the silence felt louder than the wind outside. I finally texted the group. "Is everyone okay?" No reply. At 9, I ate dinner alone. The food meant for 8 people stayed untouched. The next morning, while drinking coffee on the porch, I opened social media. My stomach dropped. There they were. Every single one of them. Laughing, smiling, holding drinks beside another lake. My brother had posted, "Family weekend. Couldn't ask for better people." My sister uploaded dozens of photos. My mother commented, "Exactly what this family needed." I wasn't in a single picture. Not because I had arrived late. Not because I had cancelled. Because nobody had invited me. Or worse, they had simply chosen not to come. I stared at the screen for several minutes. Then something inside me quietly changed. I didn't cry. I didn't send angry messages. I didn't ask why. I drove home. On Monday morning, I opened my banking app. The first payment I cancelled was my mother's monthly mortgage transfer, then my father's truck lease. After that came my brother's business loan installment. Finally, I removed my sister from the automatic tuition payments. Every recurring payment disappeared within 10 minutes. For the first time in years, my paycheck belonged to me. 3 days later, my phone exploded. Mom called 12 times. Dad left 4 voicemails. My brother texted, "Did something happen with the bank?" I ignored every message. That evening, Mom finally sent one simple text. "Honey, is everything okay?" I stared at the screen. Then I replied with only one sentence. Yes, I finally understood my place in this family. 5 minutes later, the family group chat suddenly became active. Everyone wanted answers. Everyone sounded confused. Nobody mentioned my birthday. Nobody apologized. Nobody explained why they skipped my celebration. They only wanted to know why the money had stopped. That told me everything. For years they had celebrated every payment I made, never the person making them. And that realization hurt more than being alone at the lake. I closed the group chat, blocked my banking information from every shared account, cancelled every financial guarantee connected to my name that could legally be removed. Then I booked a one-way flight for a vacation I had postponed for nearly a decade because someone else always needed my money more than I needed happiness. As my plane lifted into the clouds, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't my mother. It wasn't my brother. It wasn't my sister. It was a lawyer. The subject line read, "Regarding your father's financial obligations." I smiled for the first time in weeks, because whatever came next, I finally knew I wasn't going to save everyone anymore. The email from the lawyer stayed unopened for nearly an hour. I sat on the hotel balcony watching waves crash against the shore. For the first time in years there was no one asking me for money, no emergency calls, and no guilt weighing on my shoulders. Finally, I opened it. It explained that my father had missed several truck lease payments since I had signed as a guarantor years ago. The finance company wanted to know whether I intended to continue covering the debt. The old Ethan would have paid it immediately. The new Ethan closed the email and replied with one sentence, "I am no longer financially responsible for this account." 2 days later, my phone rang again. This time it was my father. I answered. Ethan, he said quietly, why are you doing this to us? I took a deep breath. I'm not doing anything to you, Dad. I'm simply stopping what I should never have started. There was silence. Then he whispered, we're family. I almost laughed. Exactly, I replied. So, where was my family on my birthday? He had no answer. Instead, he changed the subject. We've all made mistakes. No, I said calmly. You all made a choice. I ended the call. A week later, I returned home. Waiting outside my apartment were my mother, father, brother Nathan, and sister Claire. They looked uncomfortable. Mom stepped forward first. We came to talk. I unlocked the door, but remained standing. Talk. Nathan crossed his arms. You embarrassed us. I stared at him. I embarrassed you because you stopped paying everything without warning. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You ignored my birthday without warning. Nobody spoke. Claire finally sighed. We honestly forgot. I nodded slowly. No? What do you mean? You remembered your own vacation. You remembered to take hundreds of pictures. You remembered to tag each other online. You remembered everything except me. Again. Silence. Mom suddenly started crying. We didn't think it would hurt you this much. Those words broke something inside me. That's exactly the problem, I replied. You never thought about how I felt. You only noticed me when my bank account changed. Dad lowered his eyes. For the first time in my life, he looked ashamed. Weeks passed. Without my financial support, reality hit my family quickly. Nathan had to sell expensive equipment from his business. Claire found a part-time job instead of relying on my payments. Mom refinanced her mortgage. Dad picked up weekend driving jobs. None of those things destroyed them. In fact, they survived just fine, which proves something painful. They had never actually needed me. They had simply preferred my money. Meanwhile, my own life began changing. I paid off my own debts. I renovated my apartment. I started traveling. I even enrolled in photography classes, something I'd wanted to do since I was 22. Every month I watched my savings grow instead of disappear. For the first time, I felt rich, not because I had more money, because I finally had peace. 3 months later, there was another knock at my door. It was Dad, alone. He wasn't carrying bills. He wasn't asking for money. He held an old photo album. I found these, he said softly. We sat together in silence. Page after page showed birthday parties, camping trips, school graduations. Then the photos suddenly stopped. Around the time I started paying everyone's expenses, Dad looked at the album. I think somewhere along the way we stopped treating you like our son. I looked at him and started treating me like an ATM. He nodded slowly. I'm sorry. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was the first honest one I'd heard. Months later, my 31st birthday arrived. I rented another lake house, just like before. But this time, I invited only 3 people. My closest friend, my photography teacher, and Dad. He arrived first, holding nothing but a homemade birthday cake. No gifts, he smiled. I figured showing up was more important. I smiled back. It is? As we watched the sunset over the lake, I realized something important. Family isn't defined by the people who share your last name. Family is made of the people who choose you, respect you, and stand beside you even when there's nothing to gain. And for the first time in many years, I didn't feel alone. I finally felt at home.